Welcome back to another educational and fun-filled episode of Easy Prepping with your old Uncle Carl here. Today I'd like to cover, well, I had some eggs out in the fridge in the garage, 18 of them here that we hadn't even touched yet. And the Best By date is coming up, so I wanted to show you how I save eggs instead of throwing them out. Eggs cost way too much today to be throwing them out. But before we get into that, a brief update. First, if you haven't noticed, I haven't been on here for a while. I've been re-editing my videos to take out mentions of YouTube so that I can repost them onto Rumble. I just didn't want to start out a video on Rumble saying, hello YouTube. So I'm editing that out and putting them on Rumble. And I've been doing one or two a day because if you don't know video editing software, it takes a while. Once you click for it to exit, it takes it a while to compile the thing and create it into a file that can go out on the internet. But before we start into eggs, I'd like to give you an update on the hydroponic garden that we started. I did a video on that. It's back here behind me. I'll put a picture of it up here, but I would not recommend this particular unit by this manufacturer. It had 6 pods that were supposed to germinate within 2 weeks or so, 10 days, 2 weeks. It's now been 4 weeks and only 4 of the 6 are growing. And with what this thing costs, I would expect a lot more than a 66% success rate. So, would not recommend this hydroponics particular unit. Also, the tomatoes I've got going on the deck, I think I put in a video when I first started them. I'll put a picture up here of how they're doing. We have a bunch of little tiny cherry tomatoes in one small early girl, the plant is called. And the plants are growing, they're living, so can't complain much about that. Now, let's get on with the eggs. Well, before I really start this up, I want to walk you through the process. What you need. I use a measuring cup for beating the eggs into because it's got this little lip for pouring them into these holders, these muffin pans. Next, don't use metal muffin pans. It's hard to get frozen eggs out of them. Believe me, I know. I had to take a heat gun to the bottom of the pan to get the eggs out. Just invest, if you're going to do this, get some of these nice rubber ones. And I'll try to find them on Amazon and put a picture up here, show the price and everything. But use one of those. And because it's hard to carry with liquid stuff in it, I'd recommend a cookie sheet. To put them in the freezer, everything stays nice and flat, nothing spills out. Now, 18 eggs that I bought a while back. Then the Best By date, which is printed on the end of egg containers, if you didn't know, is going to, well, Best By date's in just 2 days. So I decided to do this. We haven't used them. Do this instead of throwing them out. Cost of eggs today, you don't want to throw them out. You want to put them up so you could have them for a while. This means they can only be used as, well, scrambled eggs or baking, but you're not just throwing them away. Another thing about doing these, the egg shells are very good in your compost pile. They're full of calcium. And although I don't break them up like a lot of people say to do, I just put them in the compost pile, let them go for a few years. But I'm not going to make you sit through me cracking and beating up a bunch of eggs. I'll bring you back when I've got this full. Also, I'm going to do this in the kitchen because sometimes it could be a little messy. And I don't want raw egg all over my desk in here having to clean up. It's much easier on the kitchen counter. So we'll come back after I get these beat up and we'll put them in the tin. Well, I've got a dozen of the eggs inside my pour measuring cup, and it will work out to where about 1 egg goes in each of the containers on the muffin pan. Don't want to call it a tin because it's rubber, but it's kind of force a habit to say muffin tin, at least with me anyway, showing my age. And another thing about eggs, if you're not sure if they're still good or not, there's a float test that you can do. You get you a pan of water that's at least as deep as the egg is tall. Put the egg in the water. If it stays completely flat on the bottom, egg is good. If it floats to the surface, throw it out. Put it in your compost pile. It's just not eating it at that point. If it just tilts up on end, it's marginal. I look at what I plan on using it for and how much is it floating. Is it still touching the bottom? Is it partially laying over? But the more it floats, the more you should look at throwing it out. When in doubt, throw it out. One other point on eggs that I've noticed just since I moved up here, the closest town to me has two groceries. One's the giant Wally Mart, which people come from miles and miles around to use. It's only one in the Bay Area. And the other is a smaller store called a JC. It's owned by Kroger. So the eggs in it are Kroger brand, or I can't think of the name. Higher quality, higher cost eggs. But if you look at the Kroger brand best by date and the other brand best by date, the more expensive ones have a much longer best by date. They're going to last longer in your refrigerator. And I don't know about you, but overall the cost of eggs, I'd rather spend a little more and not have to do this or throw them out. At Wally Mart, I discovered that the Wally Mart brand, which is the Great Value, they call it, now empty by the way, has a much longer best by date than the Kroger brand. So if I'm looking for more discount eggs, I'll get them while I'm at the Wally Mart. Either that or if I'm at the Kroger, I'll get the more expensive brand. And we're back again with the segment about getting the eggs actually, well, now I have them beat here, like you would make scrambled eggs. One quick point, I saw in one video that said if you definitely know you're going to be using them for cooking, you can go ahead and add your salt and pepper. If you know you're going to be using them for baking, you can put sugar in. And I actually did a couple batches where I tried that, but now I've got eggs in the freezer where these have to be used for cooking or these have to be used. I'd rather just do them plain. That way they can go either way when they come out of the freezer. Quick note about getting these into here. One time I bought a dozen eggs at the farmer's market and they were big. As a general rule, one egg fits in one little container here, one cup. They did not fit. They were too big. And I've also discovered with even extra large eggs, these are just grade A large, yeah, it says that on there. These will fit okay. The extra large sometimes, depending on how large, are kind of borderline, and it's hard to carry these if they're sloshing around outside the cup. So if you get the large eggs, you should be good. Now we're going to try to get these poured into here. I'll start on the far side here. And whoa, a little too much in that one. I'll need to go get a spoon and try to spread that one out a little. We want to get these as even as possible. You know, it doesn't matter a whole lot. You're going to go, and a lot of your recipes will say 1 egg, 2 egg. You're scrambling eggs. It doesn't need to be exactly large size eggs, as that definition just, I don't think, has an exact measurement to it. And it looks like with a dozen, just large, got a little shell in there I'm going to have to pull out. Now I can't really tilt this up for you to see because it's not going to flow. But I've got a few here that are a little too full, and one over here that doesn't have much in it at all. And I forgot to bring a spoon from the kitchen with me. So I'm going to go ahead and get that spoon and even these out. And I'm going to go ahead and put them in the freezer. Welcome back to getting the frozen eggs into long-term storage. I'm doing this a bit out of order in real time because I had some frozen that I need to put in these bags, and I've got some more in the fridge that I need to freeze. But I'm going to video edit to do these so they're in order. First, you want to take your saver, food saver. I like to use the smaller bags. And since I'm only doing 2 to 3 eggs per bag, they're going to be fairly small here. And if I didn't show you before, this is now all the way through. You can pass your hand all the way through this thing. So when using your food saver, and by the way, this works very well with just Ziploc freezer bags, but you want to, in those you want to get as much of the air out as possible. Remember, air is one of your enemies when you're trying to long-term store things. Now with this unit, to seal one end of the bag, to make it into a bag that has a bottom, we hit the seal button, and we put this in, and then we wait. It is heating the bottom of the bag and pressing it so that it creates a seal on the bottom of the bag. And it should be done in just, there we go. Now, before you put your eggs in and vacuum seal it, it's going to be really bumpy after you do that. So while it's still nice and, well, fairly flat, Sharpie, eggs, as if you should be able to see through the clear side and know it's eggs, but still, you know, right, frozen in the month 6/23. Now, because I have a dozen of these to do right now, I'm going to make some more of these, and I'll bring you back when I've got these done. And I've got the frozen eggs here, and I'll show you how we get them out of the container that they're frozen in and vacuum sealed into these bags. Now I have 4 of these made, as I plan on putting 3 eggs in each one. Here's our frozen eggs. Big tip, when I first did this, I tried using my wife's just tin muffin pans. And then after they froze, tried getting these bad boys out of there. I had to get out my heat gun and briefly hit the bottom of the metal muffin pan with it to get the eggs out. But these, you see, here's our open end, just pop right out. There's 1, 2, there's 3. Now we want to see the bag is well big enough. I could have made these a little bit smaller. But all I do is fold on the end, or this thing doesn't like to work on that curly Q end the way they come out. Now I take it, and it is in vacuum mode. And it should. There we go. Now it's sucking the air out of the bag. So we will have vacuum sealed frozen eggs. And now it's sealing the end of the bag after sucking all the air out. And come on, let go. You can do it. There we go. So now we have 3 eggs for long-term freezer storage. I'm told they're good for a year. I would probably trust them a little longer than that, as long as they still smell good. And all you have to do is thaw them out, and then use them for baking, scrambling, anything you would already have a beat up egg to use. And the reason I do 2 to 3 for a container is because when my wife goes to bake something, it's normally 2 eggs, 3 at the most. Or if we go to just scrambled eggs for breakfast, 2 or 3 at a time. So that in a dozen goes real nice into 4 of these. You see the label with what's in them and the date. And I don't do the exact date. I think just the month and year is close enough. They end up at the bottom of the freezer and you're cleaning it out later. You know the month of the year. You don't need the exact date. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back off camera while I do the rest of these. And we're back, and I'm getting ready to throw these back in the freezer. They're just starting. You can get a dozen of them done without them starting to really thaw out, at least not much. It's just starting to feel a little tacky on the outside. And our muffin pan here, you see they're all inside out now, ready to go into the dishwasher for the next load. Now, if I had not learned this and to buy these, but they're pretty much good forever. And I already had the vacuum sealer for doing other things. I just decided It'd be good for doing eggs this way, not just freezing them in Ziploc, but actually vacuum sealing them, I think is better. But at the cost of eggs today, this is a dozen eggs that I likely would have been just throwing out. They would have gone, well, compost pile. But now they're going in the freezer, and they're good for, I think, a year. Save you some money. You know what eggs cost today. Well, as I've just discovered, I forgot to turn on the mic. It's using the camera's internal mic, which is not near as good. I will try to use the video editing software to boost the volume up where you'll be able to hear this at least. Yeah, to close out the video, I want to put in a video of the smoke from Canada that we're seeing way down here in southern Indiana. And being the age I am and the allergies I have to things like grass and trees, I'm trying to stay inside as much as possible. That's another reason I'm doing another video today. That and those eggs were going to pass their best by date here in a couple days. Now, this is the part of the video also where I ask you to please, if you're seeing this on YouTube, please subscribe and click that like, thumbs up button. I'm also posting this on Rumble, which allows them to share it out other places, but on Rumble, I believe it's called follow instead of subscribe. But also there's a like, thumbs up button. So please do all those things depending on where you're watching it. Now, for today's quote is not really prepper related much, but I tried to find one that was about eggs. And we have from George Bernard Shaw. Although I cannot lay an egg, I'm a very good judge of omelets. Thank you for watching.